reality, but it happens all the time. It happens when we're kids, and you know what? It might be happening now as grown-ups. We're talking about Mean Girls. She's not one of them, but Dr. Karen Gordon is here right now to talk about this terrible phenomenon.
Thank you for not calling me a mean girl.
Honey, you're not one. Although, I hate to say it, we're going to talk about the stats, but I remember there were 4 of us in elementary school, and we were awful to each other. We could definitely be called mean girls, but we basically rotated who was the one that was being marginalized every day.
And you did it to each other?
Yes. I stopped going home for lunch because of that. Because I didn't want to be the one everyone was talking about, right? It's awful. I don't know why we do it.
It's weird. It's very, the group dynamics is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. And we were talking in the makeup room around how America is a little bit than Europe and different parts of the world, that it seems to be worse in America than other parts of the world.
I wonder about that.
Yeah, I've never seen the stats on that, but we were just having some interesting conversations, just globally with what's actually happened. So, because it's prevalent, and we're going to be going over stats. It is prevalent here, as children and as adults.
Okay, so I want to talk about what's happening in the stats that you got from our audience.
Yeah, so I wanted to pick the brain of our beautiful audience here to find out how many of us actually experienced Mean Girls as a child, as well as kind of comparing to adults, and also who actually admitted to being a mean girl themselves. Okay, so the results came back from our audience. 60% of you have experienced Mean Girls as a child.
I'm not surprised.
So 60%. But what's interesting, as adults, what was the number? 63%.
Oh.
It's gone up higher. Isn't that interesting?
No, that's sad.
63% as adults, we have experienced Mean Girls.
Right. I am a little shocked.
Yes.
And that's very sad.
It is sad.
But I also see it happening.
But we kind of see it happening.
I see it happening as grown-ups.
And the question is, are we just more aware of it now, right? Now we actually have a word for it.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Let's describe it. Or do you want to go through the rest of your stats first?
Very quick, the other two. So then, who actually admits to being a mean girl as a child?
Come on, fess up, people.
I know. Don't worry.
I'm not going to be the only one
Put
here.
Put your hand if you're the one that signed up for this stuff. I was very clear. I'm like, you can be confidential.
Yeah, we won't know who you are.
We're not going to putting you on the spot. So 9%. 9% admitted to being a mean girl as a child. And what was interesting, as an adult, who is a mean girl right now, it's also 9%, but a different 9%. It's not the same people.
Okay.
So some of you, we are going to be converting.
Yeah.
We are going to convert you at the end of this segment
It's
to
good
no
that
longer
you
be a
admit
mean
it,
girl.
though. Let's talk about what a mean girl is.
So a mean girl is someone who is maliciously trying to be mean and hurtful. And it could be in words, but with women, it's much more around excluding.
Yes.
It's much more, so it's less about the words. I mean, with guys, the way guys socialize is just different. It's much more physical, but with women, it's with words and in terms of controlling of the dynamics and excluding other people.
Yes. It's very powerful.
It's very powerful.
That's why it stood the test of time.
That's right.
And that's why people are doing it as grown-ups.
That's right. And even as adults, which is why this is such a great topic.
Okay, let's talk about the reasons why. Why are we mean? Why are women mean? What's the number one reason?
So number one reason is actually insecurity. Number one reason is insecurity. So let me kind of explain to you the different, so we would traditionally call low self-esteem as somebody who's actually insecure, but when we're talking about a mean girl, it's more of what they call false self-esteem.
Okay.
So it doesn't look like insecurity. In fact, it looks like someone who is super confident.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're cocky, they're arrogant, right? And so everyone's like, oh, they're really confident, but when you really pull that mask away, they're not. And the essence of false self-esteem is that they don't feel good about themselves, so they want to put down other people to elevate themselves. It's what they call leveling.
Okay.
The word is actually leveling, but it does look like almost arrogance.
It does look like arrogance.
So
and it's all false.
It's all false.
Second reason.
Lack of power. So this will be actually for more the group dynamics. So a lot of times in group dynamics, you'll have one person that's more of a ringleader, and then you'll have the followers in terms of it. So that first one might be actually more of that false self-esteem that we're talking about. But the followers, they don't feel like they have enough of a power to stand up against that person who's kind of the ringleader of it.
Okay.
So that's where sometimes you can be friends with somebody when you take them outside of that group dynamic. You can kind of break through the dynamic if all of a sudden you meet somebody outside of the same context.
That's true.
Right? So, but when you kind of get into that group dynamic, there are going to be other people that just don't feel like they have a sense of power.
Right.
And so they're not standing up to, quote unquote, that mean girl or that mean adult.
I think that happens a lot in adulthood.
Yes.
What's another reason?
And the third one is actually just ignorance or just not aware. So you will have some people that we will perceive it as mean.
Yeah.
Like, let's say they're not including you, but the intention isn't really to be mean. It's just that they're not really thinking. They're just kind of like a lack of self-awareness, a lack of kind of empathy, a lack of kind of thinking about who's not included.
Yeah.
But it's not intentionally to kind of put down other people, but it will be perceived as mean.
Okay, that's fair.
So sometimes it's good for us, even as adults, to say, well, really, what's the intent here? Is it to be malicious and mean, or is it just kind of ignorance?
How do we deal with it?
So the first thing I think is really understanding in terms of actually with what the dynamics actually are at play. But the first, number one, and we tell this to children, and I think even as adults we have to tell ourselves, is to focus on the character and not popularity.
Okay.
And you know, it's still, even as adults, we do kind of like the social status.
Yeah.
We still like it as
maybe,
adults.
yeah, it may be in different ways.
In different ways,
yeah.
whether or not in terms of, you know, jobs that are more popular, or people who have more money, or we still have a social status.
Yeah.
And so what I find when I talk to adults is that people will kind of put up with a lot more if a person has a higher social status.
Right.
And we kind of do the same thing that our kids do, except the popularity rules are a little bit different.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. Okay, so focus on the character, not the popularity.
Not the popularity. Yes.
Your friends should be your friends because you like who they are as people,
Correct.
not because
Yes.
of anything around,
Yes.
you know, any of the trappings of social
You got
status.
it. And it's the same messaging we would tell our kids. We would tell our kids, don't focus on the popularity, focus on finding really good friends.
Yeah. Do you vibe?
Yeah, find your tribe. And don't worry about how popular they are, but are they a kind person?
Right.
And make that your number one priority, not in terms of their social status. So we want to apply the same kind of good advice to ourselves.
Absolutely. You say be friendly but distant.
This is
the best piece of advice you've ever given
Tracy.
me.
Oh, thank you.
I'm a very good friendly but distant. I do it well. And it's very good for coping in life because there's so much coming at you that sometimes you can't be confrontational, and confrontation is not what I'm good at. So be friendly but distant.
Be friendly. We are going to have tons of people that are mean girls around us and mean adults. It's part of life. We can't change everybody else. That's fine.
Yeah.
So my whole motto is be friendly but keep your distance. Mm-hmm. And it allows us to kind of empower ourselves, but we're not kind of getting sucked into the drama and the vacuum of that kind of whole dynamic.
Yeah, not engaging.
And, not engaging it. So I love that.
Look for sisterhood is your last point.
Okay, so this is actually, so Dr. Margie and I were talking about this at one of our segments backstage, and I've started having a lot of conversations with a lot of people that one of the best things I think about this show, and you do this, it is because of you, and I think it's because of all the producers, that there is a commonality around sisterhood. Mm-hmm. It is not competitive with everybody. We're
trying not to be that show.
I know, but you
That's
know
not what we're about.
But that is you setting the stage, and that's the producers saying, and it really is that there's a movement that happens to all the people backstage around. We want to kind of lift each other.
Yeah.
Totally. Right? Like,
when new people come on the show, I do not want you to fail.
Yes.
Like I want you to slay your segment and feel so good about it because that's going to make you better. It's going to make you more comfortable, and you're going to be better for us, right?
Yes, absolutely. And having that whole sense of sisterhood, and so look for your sisterhood.
Yeah.
Women that are basically wanting to lift you up and raise you up, and they're not going to be threatened of your success. They're not going to be threatened of anything else. And I think it's like looking for your sisterhood is a wonderful, wonderful gift.
That's good. Okay, we need to focus more on that than you know, being mean. It's so terrible.
Yes.
It's also really easy.
Who are that 9%?
Don't look over here.
Have we converted you?
Don't look over here.